Thank you for tuning into PhillyCAM Voices. I am your host, Amanda Johnson. We have such a special show lined up, and we're going to be talking about District Attorney Larry Krasner. Now, we have a lot of interviews, so to help me tonight will be my co-host, Mr. Vincent Thompson from WURD Radio. Thank you for hanging out.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. I know we have a lot of things to talk about today, and we're happy that people listen to the radio station, 900 AM and 96.1 FM.
All right, so before we get started, we're going to come back, and I know that you have attended a lot of inaugurations for district attorneys in the area, but when we come back, I want you to share with us what's special about this one. So we're going to check out a clip from Krasner's speech.
Well, first and foremost, it is very clear from the ethical rules that the duty of the district attorney, which is different than other attorneys and also different than the judiciary at times, that duty is to seek justice in society. In society. That requires us to communicate the truth, to represent the public, and to exercise power with restraint, with our roots dug deep into the rich soil of equality. That's what we need to do. We start the long road towards trading jails and trading death row for schools. Today, we start the long road toward trading division between police and the communities they serve for unity and reconciliation and cooperation, all of which make us safe. Today, we start the long road towards trading jail cells occupied by people suffering from addiction for treatment, for harm reduction, for finding ways to keep them alive so we can on these and so many other challenges that face the city, we, this movement, have taken an oath to remember that in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, we are all family. We all deserve protection. We all deserve support and help and second chances. We are all that family. We are all that movement. Join us. Thank you.
Welcome back. Now share with us what's different about this election.
Well, I think the thing that's going to be very different about Larry Krasner is that he has never been a prosecutor. He has been a defense attorney, and he ran on a platform throughout the election of radical change in the district attorney's office. He has been in since January the 1st. The inauguration was the ceremonial inauguration on January the 2nd. And since that time, he has fired at least 31 folks in the district attorney's office. Sources tell me that's not the end of his changing of the office. And he has also insisted that he's not going to seek the death penalty and that he's going to deal with lowering the number of people in prison. So what Larry Krasner is going to do is a radical change of how we know the legal system is in Philadelphia. But the key is going to be, I think, long term is there are other people that don't want those changes. Police department. I should say individual officers might not. The union might not. Courts might not. So how does he change a system when there are going to be people that are fighting it? That's going to be the long-term thing over the next 4 years.
Wow, with people going back and forth, do you think that the people are going to rally behind him?
Well, he says he has a mandate to make changes in the office. Now, mind you, the mandate came with 20% of all registered voters in the city. So you have a mandate of a limited amount. But if Larry Krasner can even make a tenth of the changes that he wants to make, we could be talking a radical change in the district attorney's office. And also it's going to mean something to people of color, African Americans, Latinos who are in the system. That could change our system of justice in Philadelphia long term forever. So I've worked with politics, and there's a difference between running and governing. You can make a lot of promises when you're running, but when you get into the office and get under the tires and get under the hood, you're going to have to make a lot of changes. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting 4 years with Larry Krasner.
Tell us about the inauguration itself. What was the energy in the building?
Well, the energy in the Kimmel Center was one of change. You not only had Larry Krasner, who many people did not think when he started a year ago that he would win, and you also had Rebecca Reinhardt, the new city controller of the city of Philadelphia. They came in on a wave of people who wanted new, fresh changes in the city. So there was a lot of energy. But again, like I said before, there's a difference between running for office and actually being in office and governing. And that's going to be what you're going to see over the next 4 years. That's going to be where the rubber meets the road.
Especially with all the changes that he is planning to make. Well, in the studio, we have Wilfredo Rojas, and joining us is Aleida Garcia, both who have lost their children to gun violence in 2015. Thank you both for coming. So tell us about your organization or your movement, things that you're a part of, starting with.
So right after the death of our son, we went on a mission to bring the person who was responsible for our son's death to justice. And we got our family involved through Facebook, through community rallies, going door to door, and we're able to have someone arrested, a suspect arrested. Our organization engages in what we call high-level advocacy. Where we met, I come out of corrections, so I was a corrections official. So I knew how the system worked. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know how the criminal justice system works. So we're able to have our guy turn himself in, the suspect turn himself in within 3 weeks, and he's sitting in jail now on $1 million bail on the one shooting, because there was somebody else with my son who was shot, and no bail at all on my son's killing. And when we talk about the district attorney's office, we were a bit dismayed because our prosecutor was one of the people that was terminated. And our trial was supposed to begin in December. It was postponed till April. And we've been in touch with the newly elected district attorney to demonstrate our discomfort with that decision. But then again, to the victors belongs the spoils in politics, like they say. And we are going to continue our battle to ensure that justice is served. Now, he's got some policy changes. You just can't make, when you run a big operation like the district attorney's office, there are policies and procedures, and there's a culture there already established. So how do you break that culture, and how do you get people that work there to buy into that culture? And that's going to happen with the changes in policy and procedures. One thing that we would like to see is a strengthening of the policies and procedures on dealing with families like us who lost a son to murder. And when are those policies going to be rolled out? And
well, I think that's a good time to bring in your wife. With the changes that's happening to the district attorney's office, as a mother, what are other families feeling? What are other families going through? A lot of Philadelphia's had over 300 homicides in 2017, the highest number we've had since 2012. What are families feeling? What do we not hear that you want to see out of the legal system and out of Larry Krasner?
I think it's important that we have a voice, the victims have a voice, and that we're respected for the fact that, we've lost someone that we love. That person is never coming back. That person doesn't have any rights whatsoever. He will never get a chance to plead for his own life or a reduced sentence of any kind. My son is 6 feet under the ground. I say he's in heaven because that's, how I want to envision it. But I go to visit him on his birthday at the cemetery. And that's where I go to see him at Christmas and every other time. And I think if you ask just about any mother who's lost a child or a sister or brother, that they'll tell you the same thing, that they want justice, that this is a human being, that we cannot live in a culture where it is okay to commit homicide, that the gun violence rate needs to go down and severely go down. And we also need more emphasis on on a clearance rate that is it's now 37% in the city, and that's on the Philadelphia Police website if you look. So if the message is in Philadelphia you have a 73% chance of getting away with murder, and then when you're prosecuted, you might not be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, I don't think that that's a good message for people to hear. I mean, there obviously are people that would never commit a homicide no matter what, but for those people who need an incentive to not do it, I think that the system needs to really crack down on that.
If I can, I just want to follow up on that. Larry Krasner's made changes to the office, releasing a lot of the prosecutors. One of the prosecutors was the person handling your case.
Yes.
You were supposed to go up for trial in December, but now it's delayed until 2018. How do you two cope with that? I mean, you were preparing to go get justice.
Right.
Now it's delayed. Do you
Right.
think that the delay is worth it?
Well,
So-
to be quite honest with you,
Either one.
every time that happens, it's like digging our son out of the grave again and reliving that whole traumatic experience of the first day I was advised that my son had been murdered.
Yeah, I
It's
agree totally.
traumatizing.
I totally agree. When we heard that the news, my daughter started crying. I just started shaking because over the last, and this has lasted for 3 years. My son was murdered January 24th of 2015, Alejandro Rojas Garcia. And for the last 3 years, we've been living in limbo, just waiting for this trial. It's been postponed. We've waited patiently. We built a relationship with our ADA. We felt confident that he would do his best. Ultimately, it's in God's hands what's going to happen, and we were prepared to accept the decision of the court. But we felt that, we were confident in his abilities. At this point, we do not know who our ADA is. We did receive reassurance from Larry Krasner that and his office that we would be assigned a qualified attorney in time to prepare the case. So that is what we're going with at the moment.
So what are some of the things, based on your experience, that you know can change and should change?
First of all, I would like to see an office where families of homicide victims can actually call if they have any questions, because a lot of times it's very difficult to speak to the assigned district attorney. Either they're too busy or they're in court, or they just don't return phone calls like they should. So we'd like to see an office in the DA's office that deals specifically with families of murder victims, can go out into the community, explain the criminal justice system. We've been waiting 3 years. There are people that have been waiting longer than us to go to trial.
And I think that the district attorney's office is only a part of the system that we need to look at.
Right.
Starting from when the homicide unit receives a case, there needs to be a crisis intervention for families, and an office that would follow the family, because as it is now, they get piecemeal information, and then they have to go out and search for victim services. We spent the last 3 years researching all of this, and we found that there really is very little consistency, especially when you're talking about homicides. So when you talk about victim services, you're including, every other kind of crime along with homicide. But if you start asking the question of what are the services you provide to families of homicide victims, then you're going to start getting responses that you realize are kind of piecemeal. They're not really collected. So people in their worst moment of their lives, the absolute worst moment, have to start to get themselves together to apply for the funding for the funeral and to do all the other things, try to reach out to the homicide unit. A lot of times they can't get through. So it's a lot of things. And I don't think it's a question of the system doesn't want to do this. I think it's a question that it has to be better coordinated and better funded.
And to follow up on something you said, Vincent, it was very disconcerting. I was at the inaugural with Aleida, and the number of people there was very disconcerting. And I think that if we're going to have a strong DA's office, there's got to be collaboration, communication, and cooperation with the other areas of law enforcement. The police have to come to the table with the DA and with the public defender's office. There has to be some coordination. The DA is not going to be able to do it all by himself.
Aleida and Wilfredo, you also work with the National Homicide Justice Alliance. In the brief time that we have, talk a little bit about that, and if people want more information, how can they get in touch?
Well, we started Justice for Alex Now, and the reason we are both longtime activists since the 70s, so that was our response. That's sort of our way of grieving. It's a need to have a voice. It's to feel empowered, and then we took that to the next level and made it the National Homicide Justice Alliance, wanting to join with other families so that other people can feel empowered as well.
So if people want to get in touch with you, get more information, how can they go about doing
So
that?
we have a website. It's nationalhomicidejusticealliance.org. They can contact us at info@nationalhomicidejusticealliance.org.
And it's all one word, so it's a big
Yeah,
word.
it is a big word.
National Justice Alliance.
National Homicide Justice Alliance.
Okay.
And we're also on Facebook. They can reach out to me personally or Wilfredo, or they can go onto our page.
All right. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing your story, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Before we go to our next guest, we had a reporter at the inauguration. So Fatia is actually going to show us some reactions from the audience.
I'm very hopeful. I really hope that all of the reforms he wanted to bring about, all of the changes that I think the city knows it needs, will be brought forward. And I hope that all of the DAs who have been there for a long time and have done a great job will continue to be able to do a great job.
We're tired of corruption in city government and injustice with the injustice system or the justice system. So we're here just to make a change and to be part of the change and to enforce change.
So I'm really looking to sitting down with him as the chief defender and as the new DA and looking at those areas that we can carve out ways to do things that are different with people who have social issues and save the criminal justice system for really those people who threaten our public safety. That's what our system should be about, not taking care of mental health issues or drug addiction.
For 30 years, Larry Krasner has been opposed to the death penalty. He realized not only is it racist, but it's classist, it's sinful, it's unethical, it's immoral, and it's financially irresponsible. So one of the key components of Larry Krasner's platform was to no longer seek what I call state-sanctioned murder, because that's what capital punishment is. So I know that Larry Krasner will make sure that he'll go after the bad guys, but he won't murder them through the use of a state apparatus.
All right. So regarding the inauguration and all the information, have you heard people's feedback, how they're feeling about this election?
Well, I think you just heard it from the last segment from Wilfredo Rojas and his wife. Families really want to know what's going to happen in the future. There's a lot of people who are wondering what's going to happen with criminal justice in this city. We've talked about it. Philadelphia has been on the forefront of it since the election. So now the question Amanda, is going to be what is going to happen? What's going to happen over the next 4 years? It's, I tell people it's like moving a ship in the ocean. It doesn't happen quickly, okay? And there's been a lot of district attorneys. Larry Krasner becomes only the 26th person in the history of the city to ever be the district attorney. So, to change a system that has been entrenched for so long is going to take a lot. But as I've said before, and as you saw from Wilfredo and his wife and their story, a lot of people have their hopes and dreams on not only a change in the system if they have someone in jail, but also if you've lost somebody, you want to see somebody convicted for that crime. You want to see somebody brought up on charges. So how do you balance that? So I think that's going to be the biggest issue.
Definitely good. So on that note, let's introduce our next guest.
Well, let's do that, and I do appreciate that. We've been talking with a lot of the people here on this broadcast, and again, you're watching PhillyCAM Voices. That's Amanda Johnson. I'm Vincent Thompson with Thompson Media Man Communications here in Philadelphia, and also WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM. And our next guests are going to be Lorraine Hall. She's better known on the streets as Miss Dee Dee. Miss Dee Dee, thank you for being with us. She's the mother of a lifer and an active member of the Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration, and Rick Krajewski from Reclaim Philadelphia. You're both active members of the Coalition for a Just DA and published a document which outlines the hopes for the first 100 days. Let's start with you, Miss Dee Dee, as a mother of a lifer and an active member for the Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration. What do you want to see out of the new district attorney? And how do you feel about people who say, your son committed a crime. He is serving the penalty. And why should society have a compassion for him? So my first question is, Larry Krasner, what do you hope? And how do you feel about people who think that there should be no compassion for your son that's now serving life in jail?
Well, in all the years that I've been living, I've never seen a DA as Larry Krasner, to where he wants to fight for equality for people of color, for the minority, for the poor. You know, and I've known DA since Mr. Rizzo, and I've never seen this. It's always been against us. As a mother of a lifer, I understand those that do crime should pay for their crime. Should they pay with their lives? No. If they're young, even less, no. Because, I mean, they have to do the time because they did the crime. Give them a number. I give them a sensible number. A number that you would give to a person that was of a different race and because their status and financial was better. They need to be treated equally. You know, because I'm not only a mother of a lifer, but I'm also a sister of a brother that was murdered 27 years ago. Had you asked me when that happened to my brother, I would have said, fry him, execute him. I feel different now. Because when it happens, your emotions are not right. So you want all the worst. You want the pain that your loved ones felt, that they feel. I don't feel that way about this man. You know, I'm fighting for his freedom as much as I'm fighting for my son's freedom. You know, because in my heart, I've forgiven him. He was young. He didn't know what he was doing. And when people are young and they don't think right, they shouldn't have to rot in jail for the rest of their life, especially if they have been, they've changed. They know they're remorseful. They know what they did was wrong, and they're a different person from when they first went in there. You know, and as far as Larry Krasner, I'm hoping and praying that I know that he's going to build ways to where we can come against, you know, this injustice for our people, and you know, and set a place to where he can put an office to where we can not only have just the prisoners, as they call them, the perpetrator's family, but also the victim's family, that we can come together instead of having them go against each other, but to work together and to talk about their hurt and their pain and to come to some kind of consensus with each other.
Okay. Same question.
What are the things I hope Larry's going to do in his first few? Yeah, so I think as part of Reclaim Philadelphia and as a part of the Coalition for a Just District Attorney, specifically, right, our goal is to have someone like Krasner, who's an advocate and an ally for criminal justice reform, to really implement policies that are going to reduce our prison population and, as Ms. Dede just said, really redefine what justice means, because right now it doesn't mean justice, right? So we're hoping that, you know, policies like ending cash bail, like really understanding juvenile resentencing, being transparent with how prosecutors operate in the DA's office, and additionally, really understanding the immigration consequences when prosecuting undocumented people are some things that we really think will actively reduce our prison population and move us towards a version of justice that actually treats victims and offenders in a way that's holistic and transformative. So,
as far as what you can see, what are some of the low-hanging fruits that you know that could possibly be addressed soon or quickly?
So one of the things Larry's been very vocal about, right, is ending cash bail. Cash bail as it exists now is a system that targets poor people and people of color disproportionately. You know, it's estimated that about 1/3 to 50% of the people who are incarcerated currently are there because they can't afford bail. So implementing some real reform in how prosecutors recommend bail would be a massive help to reducing the prison population and to really having people not be guilty until proven innocent, right? And so I think that's one of the things we're really hoping Krasner can do immediately.
What about you, Ms. Dede? What do you want to see Larry Krasner do, both in the short term and in the long term?
Both in the short and the long, I want him to keep his word that he's fighting for our people. You know, not just people of color. He's fighting for people, period. You know, he's not about, okay, well, if they have money and they're not, you know, black or Hispanic or Cuban or Indian, then we're going to break. No, he's about justice, equal. If you did it, this is what's going to happen, regardless if you're pink, purple, or black. You know, and the thing with him is, I tell you, I've never given my all in all, and voting and all my life like I've done for this man, and I never met him till after everything was done, and I've met him, but I can see that he's for us. This is somebody that's finally come to fight for us. You know, so I have, first, my hope is always in my Lord and Savior, first and foremost. That's where my hope is, but he's given me more hope. And the group that I'm with, which is Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration, the DA Coalition, I'm learning. I don't know nothing about politics. I can only talk from my heart, but I know that Krasner's there. He gives me hope that my son can come home, and at the same time that I can talk to this man that took my brother's life away and let him know that, you know, I've forgiven you from my heart, and I hope that you can get freedom the same way that my son can get it.
If Larry Krasner doesn't accomplish everything, we only have a few seconds, do you think that there will be blowback? Because there's a lot of hopes and dreams from Reclaim Philadelphia and the Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalties. But if he doesn't achieve that in 4 years, do you think that many of you who were excited about him will turn on him when it comes for re-election 4 years from now? Let me ask you, Brett.
Yeah, so I mean, I think part of our vision as a coalition, right, is to really build this relationship with Krasner and DA's office, where we can be honest about like what is achievable with Larry as district attorney. Where are the places where we need to negotiate? What are the priorities that we can get done in the first 100 days and beyond? And when he does get that blowback, whether it's from the FOP or other people that are oppositional to his agenda, our role as a coalition as well is to back him up and to really support him in those policies. So I think, you know, it's a combination of us being a system of support for Larry when he implements these things that are going to maybe create blowback from people in the city, and also having honest conversations with him about what are the priorities and what are the things that are actually achievable.
Well, we're up against the clock, so I'm going to let Amanda take us home. Again, it's been a pleasure.
Okay. So if someone wanted to get in contact with your group, how could they do that?
They can go, which group? My
Cabby. Both of them.
You can get on Facebook.
Tell them about both.
Okay.
On Cabby,
Tell them about
Facebook.
both.
Facebook, Cabby.com on Facebook. Cabby/DA-decarcerate-PA.com, and you can get in touch. And as far as coalition.
Yeah, well, you're going to PhillyDAForThePeople.org, and also we're going to be doing social media launch around our 100 Days platform pretty soon, so people should definitely stay posted.
What's the, we still have a little bit more time, okay. So tell a little bit about what the first 100 days are. What are you looking for Larry Krasner to do realistically? Since he's got so much, he's kind of drinking from a fire hose in a sense. What do you expect him to really get done in those first 100 days?
Can I speak on that? I expect him to do what no other DA has done, which is you have control. Okay, everything's run by judges and so forth and so on, but you have control, being a DA, of saying, well, this is how we're going to do this, and we're going to fight it this way. We're not just going to sit there and say, hang him, because no, he's going to do the right thing that he's supposed to do. Just like that word justice, it doesn't mean just us. It means justice for all of us. And that's doable. Am I asking him to free my son tomorrow? No, that's my wish, but no. But I know that he's going to help a lot of people, not just my son, but a lot of young folks that have no business being there. From 18, from 16, 17, they're 40 and 50, and they're still there.
And some of them are just getting caught up in the system.
Yes.
And it's sad to see somebody 16, next thing you know, they're 25, you're like, what happened?
And some of them don't even see hope, and they take their lives.
That is true. Are they even considering the suicide rate from people who feel like they've lost hope? Especially when they know that they're innocent or nobody really fought for them because they didn't have the money.
That's right.
With the cash bail. Can you explain a little bit about what the cash bail is?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, basically before a person's trial, when they're under suspicion of committing a crime, they'll be held on a cash bail that they have to post. And so a lot of times these amounts are like thousands of dollars, which a lot of folks can't afford.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That is all of our time. Thank you so much for tuning in to PhillyCAM. I'm your host, Amanda Johnson. And
Vincent Thompson from WURD Radio. You can follow me on Twitter at MediaManCom.
All right, see you next time.